11/19/2022. Tillamook Hospital. This paperwork is evidence to go in conjunction with the video of the incident where I explained to the hospital staff on this day why I was there. I was there needing a mandated reporter. I needed the police to work together with Adult Protective Services as the law requires. Because I needed to turn in officers and I didn't turn in services like TFCC. They did not do their legally mandated reporter job. And when one of the officers that I was trying to turn in showed up and badgered me, by law, they were supposed to kick him out of the room instead of allow him to intimidate me and show me that the laws were outright not going to be followed. Nobody cares. On the bright side, I got that video where I explained it to them. They wanted me to go to follow-up resources like Tides of Change, Care, Helping Hands. I'd already been to all of them, with the exception of Helping Hands, which these places all claims it was always closed or always full, and they'd already made the calls. But it says continue to follow up. Why do they want me to continue to follow up with literally the places that I'm trying to turn in? These are all mandated reporters that I went to, with the exception of Tides of Change, and I feel horrible for Monica. I really do. I'm not there to kill myself, and they did not care that I was there because I needed a mandated reporter. They did not care. That's what happens when you make a disabled homeless person go in alone. Your guilt is assumed. If a police officer tells them that you're schizophrenic, you're schizophrenic. That must be how it is. If a police officer comes in and the victim tells you it's one of them predators, see, I'm trying to turn in that officer because all of the harm that I've had to endure is because those officers didn't lift a finger to actually do their jobs. They basically showed up to let us know that they're annoyed that we exist. What are the different types of abuse and neglect? Well, this right here. This is evidence that the entire county is utilizing the homeless population and victimization of the homeless population here to scalp the American taxpayers for literally millions of dollars per year. Yes, it is literally millions. When you take into account all of the court dates, all of the jail, all of the time spent because they didn't want to do their job for a homeless person. They intentionally didn't do their job. What did every single one of these mandated reporters have in common? All of them stand to gain financially from not doing their jobs. All of them are trained to know who the easiest people to victimize are. Every single one of these people are supposed to, according to law, be trained. That mandated reporter training video that I posted up, the ones from many different departments, these are their literal training videos. Theirs. The Department of Health and Human Services. The ones for in-home facilities and in-care facilities. The one for quote-unquote mentally ill people. But you look how, instead of them doing their mandated reporter job, the law that they are required to do this under is because if they don't do their job, it does get people killed. Leon Lawrence IV didn't have to worry about being killed. Sammy Leon Lawrence IV was a victim of police brutality in Boulder, Colorado. But they had to play real special and nice with me because they knew I'd been on the news and that it was under scrutiny and that people were speaking up and offering to help. But they also all showed that no matter what, they were going to all not follow the instructions. I'm supposed to go to friends and family for help. I did that. I went to a lot of friends and family for help. I went to Veronica Bruce. We've seen evidence of that. Went to Esteban. I went to Kayla Trujillo, aka Miss Peaches. It says, how can elder abuse be prevented? This right here is just another example of malpractice and intentional wrongdoing on their part, because this is supposed to be for the disabled. But who cares if they give me the wrong paperwork, right? It's because if they'd have given me the right paperwork, there's just enough changes in this for you to understand that for a person who is called mentally ill, they are being sent, instead of mandated reporters doing their jobs about this kind of stuff, these mandated reporters are sending us to their friends to make a profit. All of these places accept your money, your taxpayer dollars. Some of them even accept hundreds of millions of dollars in donations, not specifically the ones here, but these types of programs, like Tides of Change for battered women, people donate money to them for them to help female victims. A lot of people are pissed off that they will accept male victims, but they won't help the male victims. It says, what are the different kinds of abuse and neglect? Physical abuse. This includes rough handling, threats with a weapon, throwing objects, pushing, hitting, hair pulling, force feeding, and improper use of restraints or medicines. That would be the very same exact hospital that here is committing Medicare and Medicaid fraud. Here, we get to see physical abuse. That was Stephan L. Stephanides. I don't have a video recording of that. All my stuff was almost dead on battery. I needed to be able to charge up my battery. I needed to be able to use my phone to record it, and as soon as I was socially isolated, I was abused. It says sexual abuse. This involves unwanted sexual contact that is forced or tricked. I'm going to keep that one to myself for now because of the nature of it, especially in this town. And their history of helping female teachers with getting away with pedophilia. So emotional abuse. It says this includes verbal attacks, rejection. That's right, they rejected me. Their mandated reporter job. They rejected me outright and did not do their jobs. None of these places ever got a hold of Adult Protective Services to have them get involved and make sure it was done right. Because you don't want to waste those resources on the homeless because, well, that's a waste of money. But victimizing the homelessness That's a worthy use of your money. As this includes verbal attacks. We've got recordings with multiple people who were lied to by the officers here. And many verbal attacks, as well as attacks in texting. If somebody is verbally attacking me and they're attacking me in texting, this is what these girls have learned. This is what all girls learn. Us boys don't get taught this shit. We don't get taught how to play victim. We get blindsided by women all the time because they work together. You know that crazy lady down the street with all the money and you're wondering how the fuck she got it? Well, she was one of them manipulators back in the day. And a lot of people helped her to work together to learn these things. Nearly all of these women that I went to for help who claimed that they didn't know how to help, all of them do. Every single one of them do. There isn't a single one who hasn't gone through this with some woman. Us girls got to stick together, remember? And of course, they're angry at this person because men are evil to women. So that gives them an excuse to go in there with angry eyes and just pull out the little bits and pieces they can use to try to pretend that a man is a bad guy. Or they attack him verbally and physically and harass him publicly. And then, of course, that gaslighting being very public is easy for you to go in and convict these women for the felonies they're committing. Felonies that have been shown time and again to get innocent men murdered. There are certain things that if you make false charges of them, that it should be a mandatory minimum sentence equal to that of the crime that you accuse them of committing. Maddie Boa should be in prison for a long time. A man would get up to 40 years. A woman gets on average 8 months. Rejection, humiliation. Now, verbal attacks, this is even when they're talking nice, when they're trying to sell another narrative, when they're trying to talk over your experience, what you have literally gone through, and they're going to talk over the top of you with their own narrative or version for something they were not there for. And that narrative they are selling over the top of the victim who is needing to be heard, letting that victim know that nobody cares. Humiliation. How these people talk down to me like a dog, how I'm made fun of and harassed and threatened. And if I do any of those things back, I'm treated like I'm an animal who deserved all of this. No, that's not okay. Intimidation. When I'm afraid of that officer and he's the one who's allowed to badger me. That's right, this paperwork came from the day that Lotham, one of the officers that I was trying to turn in, along with a lot of other abuse that had been accumulated because Officer Lotham did no investigative work whatsoever. He could have gone into Fred Meyer's. He could have gotten the cameras from inside of Fred Meyer's. He would have seen what Molly was doing. He could have spoken with the Scudders. He should have gotten a hold of Adult Protective Services. That interaction between Lotham and I over Molly way back at the beginning when all this crap with her started. Them doing nothing that night allowed her to continue her reign of terror and made it so that I had to be afraid to go to police. That was my first interaction with police in this town. Social isolation. You get to see I live in my car. I don't have any friends here. I have people that I beg for help. People who I try to tell my story to so they understand I am afraid. And also, me being here doesn't put me at risk. It puts everyone here at risk because they have crooked law enforcement. Social isolation. By forcing me to run around all these different places, spending all of my money that I don't have enough to take care of myself for the month, and I have to stop this abuse. I have to stop it. I am stuck in an environment where people can do whatever they want at any point in time. One of the things that these mandated reporters, such as the police, like to do, or the DA's office, they'll tell you to call 911. You call 911 and they threaten you for calling 911. Literally, the officers who have created the safety issue for you and threatened you are now threatening you for calling 911 after they told you to call 911. Are you fucking kidding me? It says abuse may also include denying the person participation in decisions that affect his or her life. And that has been every bit of this. The term mentally ill has been used to deny me the right to active participation in decisions that affect my life. Whether or not this evidence is shown, all of these people who have elected not to look at it have denied me the right to turn in my abusers by doing so. So they can pretend that they don't know anything because they never saw any evidence. So I put it on the internet that I tried. I show my efforts to get heard. I show you how it really is. They showed that day that they didn't care. It also showed that day that because of my fears and because when I am scared, the first things I forget are names and numbers, that is used to harm me often. And maybe if I had a friend or family member who wasn't having to be afraid to go to the police, they could help to remember some of those names, and they could correct me when I make a mistake. Instead of pretending I'm a liar, they could correct me when I make a mistake. Sean, that was Officer Lotham, not the fat, stupid one. Like, really, how am I going to describe Officer Lotham when I couldn't remember his name because I'd only met him once, and I got to remember all of these names, and I have to go back through my videos to try to listen, and some of them don't say their names. They'll refuse, or they'll refuse to give a card, or they give the card and it gets buried in this trash pile that I am living in. They're denying me all of my rights because they know that I need help, but they're trying to play on this participation. They give me options that are illegal, and then they say you can either choose this illegal option or that illegal option. But we're not going to do our jobs as mandated reporters when you try to turn in the situations that happened at Tides of Change, CARE, Helping Hands, TFCC. Helping Hands was supposedly called by TFCC, as well as CARE, as well as Tides of Change, I do believe. Don't quote me on the Tides of Change one. And all of these situations, officers from the departments I was trying to turn in showed me absolute disrespect, as officers always do when it's a homeless person. You are treated as a burden as a male in this country already if you need help. How dare you need help? Instead of doing their jobs as mandated reporters, all these places wanted to commit Medicare and Medicaid fraud and assist their friends, as we recorded. That lady was sending us to her friend, Joy, who we had already been to, didn't we? She's recorded in my clandestine audio recording devices. You guys know the one. Let's go to the second piece of paper, actually. This is one of 4. We'll read 2 of 4. Financial abuse. This includes theft, fraud, and improper use of influence to gain control over money or property. Financial abuse is the most common form of elder abuse. Well, disabled abuse too, and you get to see how all of this county, this entire county, all of the mandated reporters, I have exhausted my resources with them because all of them are working together because they all benefit from financial abuse against the mentally ill. And the mentally ill, as they have all been trained to know and understand, the mentally ill, especially the homeless mentally ill, are the most easy to victimize people in the country. And because our police and our courts are working together with hospitals and therapists, all of them to commit financial abuse. This includes theft of my evidence, fraud. That's right, multiple different types of fraud too, multiple types of theft. Improper use of influence to gain control over money or property. That's right, theft. My evidence. My predators abused not just financially, but in all of these ways. All of these were committed by every single mandated reporter that I went to. Literally every single one. According to the law, every single one of these mandated reporters broke the law. And because they are repeated against myself and others, and because we have seen the repercussions for those others. Neglect. Not just a caretaker, folks, it's a mandated reporter. They gave me this stuff specifically just for an old person in an old folks' home. They literally go out of their way to pretend that a 42-year-old is 65 in a care facility. No, but I should be in a care facility. Many people have said that Lana Ingline threw that in my face in the most mean and evil and cruel fashion that she could, but at least even she admitted. Neglect. The caretaker. In the case of myself, with no friends or family, my caretaker is always the mandated reporter that I'm going to. Always. This is according to federal law. That means every therapist I went to, every officer that I went to, every nurse or doctor that I went to, every single one of them, whether they are friends with the predators that I am turning in or not, are mandated by law. They are required because of the risks of exactly this situation happening. We're going to Health and Human Services. Results in Health and Human Services personnel trying to send us to, literally by that lady's own admission, her friends. We also went in so that if they try to pretend that I'm making this all up, that I did go in and I did get Joy's card. I recorded everything. I saved every piece of paperwork, every electronic file I could. I tried to make duplicates of everything. I bought multiple electronic devices for myself and for others so that we could do this. And other people like Dan Faber bought things for me, like my telephone. This is neglect. This is a caretaker's failure or refusal to meet the needs of an older person or a disabled person. But the thing is, they gave me the wrong paperwork for a reason. The reason that I had to go through and look these laws up myself is because, and post them up, is because I knew that no matter what, there's always going to be some clerical error that's not my predator's fault, right? Some clerical error that affects my entire life and my ability to ever turn in my predators again. They created a reputation for me they prey on now. And the fact is, literally the only thing I can do to be heard without a friend or family to go into these advocacy agencies and help to explain it. They're just going to exploit me. It says, this can include failure or refusal to provide food, shelter, clothing, shelter, 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 shelter. Let's look at that word right there. Shelter, clothing, personal hygiene, medical care, medical care, medical care. I went to a hospital for medical care because this is a part of medical care. That's why these are mandated reporters before they can even get their jobs. And this paperwork came from the hospital. Let's continue. What are the risk factors for abuse and neglect? All these mandated reporters, they're literally all mandated reporters, everyone passing the buck. Each of these agencies has passed the buck at least 3 times. But they want me to still keep coming back to their service. Or they won't do anything and I get 50 minutes per month. 50 minutes per month of help. Meanwhile, the financial abuse against me makes it so that I don't have the ability to take care of myself. It says, what are risk factors for abuse and neglect? Elder abuse is more likely to occur if a person is alone, isolated, or lonely. That would be me. Has experienced a recent loss. I've experienced a lot of losses, nearly non-stop since Natalie's death. It says, is mentally or physically disabled. I am both. Cannot manage his or her personal care or finances. I can't. I can't do it, and I tell them this. And they talk over me. It says, has contact with someone who abuses drugs or alcohol. They're sending me to dual diagnosis clinics and places like churches where they feed a lot of people on drugs and alcohol. You send me to a church to get food. There's mandated reporters there, so it's supposed to be safe. When I get there, Robert Farnsworth, sorry. Robert Farnsworth gets to harm me and threaten me and scream at me. And they use the mentally ill term for him to let him get away with this over and over and over again, despite at least a dozen of his victims. Their voices on my channel speaking about him. Just one of my many predators here in Tillamook, including law enforcement. It says, is over 75 years old, the frequency of abuse increases with advancing age. It's because our bodies start falling apart and our minds become different. I'm not that old yet, thank goodness. It says lives at a care facility with a shortage of beds, too many patients, or not enough staff. And that's what all of these places are using as an excuse, isn't it? My public pretenders too, saying they weren't going to do their job. Abuse may also occur for with caregivers who are under great stress. How many of my friends and loved ones typed to me that they were under great stress? How many of them told me about all of their problems without hearing any of mine? Even the ones who did listen, they didn't retain anything. They were bored. They wanted to talk about them. Even the mandated reporters that I went to wanted to talk to me about their hopelessness with the system as their excuse to not do their jobs as mandated reporters. Danelle Boggs complaining that the system is broke. No, she is the reason that the system is broke. And all those like her. It says abuse may also occur with caregivers who are under great stress. This may be due to financial, marital, or work problems, a recent decline in health, or loss of a loved one. And what have all of these people given me as excuses? All of my friends and family as well. All of these under great stress. They were telling me that people were threatening to kill their families. Like Sarah Bacon, like Cara Rogers, aka Cara Mia, like Aaron Cockerham. They were telling me not to trust the other people that were doing this stuff, and then later on they worked together and became friends with these people who they claimed were these horrible monsters. Natalie Bollinger is not my only loved one who I've lost. Many of my loved ones became predators. That doesn't mean I didn't love them. Many of my loved ones neglected me when I needed them most. But that doesn't mean I didn't love them. And I spoke out. I spoke about all of these things. This is from November of last year. These are all the things that I explained to you guys. I already know this stuff. I know my shit. I grew up in the system, boys and girls. We learned this crap every day in class. When I was in Fairfax, we had an hour every day of sex group. And we had an hour every day of abuse recognition. Sex group doesn't mean we were having sex. That meant it was therapy about being sexually abused. It says abuse may also occur with caregivers who have a history of mental illness such as depression or mental disability. Have said nobody's going to listen to them because they're also called mentally ill. Or they couldn't do anything because they were too depressed. Or they were disabled themselves. And yes, I saved the evidence. They're supposed to look at it. It says abuse alcohol or other drugs. How many of them I've shown to you? I've shown to you their drug use. You've gotten to hear with recordings with many witnesses. It says, how do I know if someone is being abused or neglected? Someone may be going through abuse or neglect if the person has physical signs of abuse, such as injuries to the skin, such as burns, scars, bruises, sore rashes, broken bones, weightless injury to the genitals, difficulty walking. Please help me. Please help me. It says does not have necessary medical and personal items such as medicines, hearing aids, or eyeglasses. shows behavioral signs of abuse or neglect. The older person may, and these are signs that an older person will exhibit if they're being abused. It says move away from or seem afraid of a caregiver. See, they only gave me the stuff for a elderly person, 75 or older, in a care facility. At the hospital here, when I went to turn in these abusers as mandated reporters, they didn't give me the mentally ill paperwork, the mentally disabled paperwork, the physically disabled paperwork. They gave me the one thing that I'm not: elderly. But the risk factors are the same and actually at a higher level. It says the older person may move away from or seem afraid of caregiver. Where is it? There it is. Move away from or seem afraid of a caregiver. Withdraw socially. I'm scared of people, but I'm stuck in public, so I'm withdrawn socially, but I'm still stuck here, taking the abuse, taking the screams, the yells, the shouts, the hate. It says become violent or agitated. I definitely become agitated, but not violent. They just wanted to pretend that I am by gaslighting me and literally screaming for help. It says, seem depressed. Here it is. Have nightmares or difficulty sleeping. Lives in an unhealthy or unsafe environment. Shows signs of not being cared for, such as poor hygiene or dirty clothes. On page number 3, it's really important. This is why I went to my friends and family first. This is why I tried to go see my older brother in Colorado before Natalie was killed. This is why I tried to see my friends in Boulder, Colorado before Natalie was killed. Because this all could have been prevented. How can this abuse be prevented? If you're a friend or family member. Like I told you, it takes a friend or family member, or they're never going to get the process started. And that allows these victims to over and over again be recorded. My predators here in Tillamook are doing this to a lot of other people, knowing that they can't take care of themselves and have no friends or family that'll help. And you get to hear from their experiences, because they're mortified of the police as well. It says right here that it addresses you before it ever addresses me. It says try to see the person regularly. Frequent visits will help you determine if the person shows signs of abuse or neglect. But I'm the one that makes that effort, aren't I? It says get to know the staff who are taking care of the person. You should look up Clearview Behavioral Health, Johnstown, Colorado. You should look up Officer Waylon Lolatai, Boulder, Colorado. I need to stop making this video because I'm going to have a meltdown if I don't. We'll get to more of it later. Get to know the staff who are taking care of the person. Express any concerns you may have right away. Right away. Keep notes of the conversations. I recorded the conversations themselves. Much more easier. It says take pictures if there are signs of abuse or poor health standards. How many times was I locked up and prevented from that? It says offer to accompany the person to medical appointments, financial institutions, or other important meetings. No, don't just offer. Follow through. Follow through. Lots of people offer to do shit that they never followed through with.